Question time. What do Steve Jobs, Anna Wintour, Larry Ellison, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk all have in common? These people built empires, but they also built around them controversy. Let's be honest, if you followed them for any amount of time, you know that they're kind of known to be, well, jerks. So does this mean that you have to be difficult in order to succeed? Let's dive in. I'm Sadaf Sheikh, and I've been working with CEOs for most of my 25-year career and have seen how leadership styles impact culture. Today, we're diving deep into the leadership styles of these iconic leaders, talking about their controversial styles and the impact that they've had, and answer the question, do you need to be difficult in order to succeed? We'll explore why these leaders adopt these challenging behaviors and what it means for those of us who want to emulate them. Stay tuned, because at the end I'm going to talk about whether it's really necessary or if there's another path to building an empire. Apple, Vogue, Oracle, Tesla, Amazon, all of these companies have changed and revolutionized the way we do things in our lives. They're world-famous brands, but they're also cultural phenomenon. And at their core are leaders that have transformed these industries with iron wills and a reputation for being tough. But what impact does this style have really? And does it come with a cost? Let's get into it. Leaders like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk didn't just create products. They set trends that shaped how we live and think. But was that influence always positive? Let's kick things off with Elon Musk, the face of innovation and controversy. No doubt, Elon Musk has created a culture of innovation in his organizations. He holds people to high standards, but as I'm going to explore very shortly, only some of the time. And where he's concerned, the standards can be take it or leave it. For example, there have been allegations of sexual harassment in his factory floors. There have been allegations of racial discrimination. There has been retaliation against whistleblowers. There's been violation of labor laws. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, Musk downplayed the severity of the pandemic, forced his people to continue to keep coming into the factory to work. He's famously and very publicly said that he encourages long hours. He does not believe in rest. He has also said, I'll give him credit, that people should not be like him, but he credits a lot of his success with the fact that he doesn't need a lot of sleep and that he works 24/7. He does foster innovation, but many times it comes at the cost of his employees' well-being. Now, many people are going to say that, well, that's just a byproduct of leading a successful company. That when you're leading a large organization, these allegations and disgruntled employees are going to be par for course. And something like long hours is even required if you want to get to that greatness level that these companies have achieved. And that may all well be true, but later in this video, I'm going to share why I believe that that's not always the case. You don't always have to kill your employees and create this culture of frenzied action in your company in order to get to the top. So what do you think? Are long hours and a product-first mentality a requirement to have a successful company? Comment below and let me know what you think. Next, let's talk about Steve Jobs. Now, we all know that Apple is synonymous with innovation, and Steve Jobs led Apple through a lot of that success. His name is almost synonymous with visionary. His leadership style? Not so much. Now, he has had a revolutionary impact. His vision has had an impact on the way we live our life these days. Your cell phone has become your entire world, for most people anyway. But he was also known to be a very demanding and hard person to work for. He had high standards, which is completely understandable and appreciated, but he also dismissed and belittled employees who didn't meet those high standards, creating this culture of fear at Apple. I'm going to talk about something called psychological safety later in the video. Apple was Steve Jobs and Steve Jobs was Apple. And in every way, the employees were there solely to further the vision that he had for the company. Working long hours, sacrificing their personal lives for what he believed he needed them to do. Now, that's okay on the one hand. Maybe, you could even argue that in order for a company to be great, fine, you need people to work long hours with no breaks. But Steve Jobs and a number of other tech leaders also did something controversial and downright illegal back in the early 2000s. According to a New York Times article, Jobs and a number of other tech CEOs agreed not to poach each other's employees. Now, while on the surface, this may seem okay, after all, no employer wants to lose their employees to the competition, right? This, however, goes against all of the mechanisms of a fair market. In a free market, employers and employees are free to explore and court each other through various means and mechanisms, and they reach an agreement when the price, which is the salary, compensation, is agreed between the seller of skills, the employee, and the buyer of skills, the employer. The problem happens is when the sellers aren't able to see the full market, aren't able to actually even see what potential jobs are out there, because these group of employers, these large tech companies, have decided that they're not going to poach each other's employees. And what that means is me as an employee sitting in Google, I will never find out about the job that, Oracle has posted that I potentially could be a good fit for, because Oracle has categorically decided not to hire any active Google employees. And this was happening. Steve Jobs and many of the other CEOs actively have played a role in making this happen. Steve Jobs put the company first before ethics, humanity, and even the law. So I'm curious to hear your views. Do you think that this idea of no poaching from competitors is a fair market practice? Do you think that it's an appropriate thing for top CEOs to collude and say, I'm not going to steal your people? Because let me tell you, this is not just a tech industry issue back in the 2000s. This continues to happen today. I have worked for companies where this happens, where an employer, if they start to take too many people from a particular company, will get a cease and desist letter from that company. Say, stop taking our employees. And sometimes CEOs, because they have relationships, will actively say, fine, I will not take a person from your workforce unless there's a reason that you approach me and tell me it's okay to take them. Tell me what you think. I want to know. I'm curious. Then there's Jeff Bezos, who transformed Amazon into this global empire. He was a true visionary, and he changed the way we search, research, and buy products online. He grew the company from a tiny online bookstore to the massive mega conglomerate that it is today. But there's a dark side to this. There have been reports of grueling work condition in Amazon's warehouses. Workers are forced to work long hours. Well, this long hours seems to be a theme, a recurring theme with these leaders in very stressful conditions. Now, some people are going to say that Amazon is good because, and I'll be honest, I am one of them. I do believe that the choice that Amazon has on its marketplace is phenomenal. If I want to buy something, I can go in, look at reviews, and I have choice. As a consumer, I have choice. But the complete disregard for the people that are working in warehouses, the people that are actually doing all the packaging that is furthering this business, that is creating this monster called Amazon, that is not okay. So I'm going to ask you, do you think that Amazon's business practices as they relate to employees' well-being or even the environment are justified for creating this massive, amazing Amazon that we all love? Put in the comments, I want to hear. So are there examples of leaders who have built successful companies who aren't as, shall we say, mean as the leaders I just talked about? The answer is yes. Not all leaders lead with an iron fist. There are equally successful leaders who are known for their empathy and kindness as they lead massive organizations to success. So can you succeed without being controversial? Let's take a look. So first up, let's talk about Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft from 2014 to present day. In an interview at the 2022 Future of Work conference, he said, the psychological safety that you create around you, especially the more senior you are, becomes super important. One technique is to share your own fallibility because that gives confidence to others. This concept of psychological safety, let's talk about that for a second. So remember I talked about Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and especially Steve Jobs, the culture of fear that they create around them when they were leaders and when they are leaders. This concept of psychological safety is the exact opposite of that. Psychological safety just means that you're able to voice your concerns, take risks, you're able to disagree with people in public without fear of any kind of repercussions or any kind of negative consequences. So when you look at the contrast between Satya Nadella's leadership style, where he promotes and actively works on creating a psychologically safe workplace, to that environment of Elon and Steve Jobs, where they willfully don't give a damn and they want to just continue to keep pushing for creating a business, and the employees either fall in line or are out. And what happens is when people feel safe to take risks and to disagree with their leadership, innovation actually does increase. Okay, so now you probably are thinking to yourself, well, this is great, but what does that mean for the company's bottom line? Like, are these companies truly successful? Microsoft has been around for a really long time, but has it thrived under Satya Nadella's leadership? Let's take a look. The proof is in the numbers. Microsoft stock in 2014 was $36.21. In 2024, it is $422.54, meaning that's more than 1,000% increase in 10 years. That's something to be said. Another person I want to talk about that has actively promoted the well-being of his employees is Richard Branson. Richard Branson started the Virgin Group back in 1970. He has always been a visionary, and we know from the Virgin Group's history that Richard started and closed down many businesses. That kind of, let's take a risk, let's see if it works, and let's see if we can figure this out, is embodied in the fiber of the Virgin Group. He allowed his people to take risks and to make mistakes in a safe place. And he's always had an employee first philosophy. Today, the Virgin brand is well known across the globe and has a number of successful little companies within it. The third person I want to talk about is Indra Nooyi, CEO of PepsiCo from 2006 to 2018. She was known for being an empathetic leader. She involved employees in decision making, and it's also pretty well known that she has famously written letters to her team's parents to thank them and appreciate them. She's gone to her team's houses. These types of personal touches are so different from what we were talking about earlier with those difficult leaders or those mean leaders that we hear about all the time. These leaders don't necessarily make headlines the way Jeff Bezos does or the way Elon Musk does with his controversial, rants on X, but they lead in a way that creates loyalty in people. So I want to know, I'm going to share my takeaways with you in a second, but comment down below, now that you've heard both sides of the success stories of these leaders who are difficult and sometimes jerky and sometimes mean, and you've heard stories of these leaders who are kind and empathetic and create loyalty and still lead successful companies, which way do you think is better? Comment below and let me know. All right, so here are my takeaways. You need a strong vision and goals. There is no doubt about that. But you need to bring your team on that journey with you. Being and operating in a silo the way Steve Jobs did, or being autocratic the way Elon Musk sometimes is, that doesn't help the employees see and experience and live and breathe your vision. Bring them along on that journey. You do need to set high standards and you need to hold people accountable. But you also have to remember that people aren't always going to work at your pace, and you have to lead with kindness and patience. You do need to make hard decisions as a leader, and you will make decisions that will impact people negatively. But by doing so in an empathetic way, people actually will remember you for that. That creates loyalty. The truth is that as a leader, you won't be liked at all times, and that's okay. But you need to be known as a fair person. The media talks about all of these controversial leaders a lot more. But that doesn't mean that the people who are not so controversial, who put their heads down and work and treat people with humanity and still are leading businesses, are any less impactful in the world. And finally, I'm going to say this. You can be strong and firm and driven and have a huge impact and still be kind. And let me know in the comments too if you want me to do a follow-up video on the strategies, the specific strategies of these kind but impactful leaders that still go on to do great things. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I have loved researching this topic for you. If you have any other topics that you want me to talk about, by all means, put it in the comment section below, and I will see you next time.